Welcome to the Power Up Your Marriage and Business podcast. We're your hosts, Robert and Kaylee Fukui. I know we're supposed to say we created this podcast for you, but we really created this for us. Because one of the power struggles we witnessed growing up and now dealing with in the present is balancing the needs of the business with priorities of marriage. Does this sound familiar?
As children of entrepreneurs, we're often on the receiving end of that struggle. Parents worked so hard to provide that they did not have time for us. We realized it wasn't their fault. They did only what they knew. But not wanting to repeat the past, we've been intentional about building a business that we run as opposed to it running us.
Every day we fight to keep the priorities the priority: faith, family, and finance, or the business. Some think it's impossible, but we say it's possible. You just need to challenge the false belief that a successful business only comes at the sacrifice of your family. It doesn't have to happen that way, and we know we're not the only couple to think this way and achieve it.
If you listen to some of our past episodes and tune in for future ones, you will hear from some amazing marriage experts and entrepreneur couples that have been able to build a thriving marriage and prosperous business at the same time.
So that's why we created this podcast, to be in the front row and hear from others that have gone before us. And from time to time, we'll share what has worked for us as well. But we know there's more to learn and want to take you along for the ride with us. We may never get it perfect, but with intention, we can all build a thriving marriage and prosperous business. So thank you for listening. Sit back, get comfortable, and let's power up your marriage and business. Hey, power couples, and welcome to this week's episode.
Hi, you guys.
Hey, can we believe it? We're well over 100 episodes, honey.
Yeah, I know. Boy, it doesn't seem like it, does it?
No, it doesn't. It's gone by so quick. So, number one, thank you all for listening. We're still getting new listeners from different new countries. So,
oh, do you remember what the new countries are?
I knew you were going to ask me that. But no, not off the top of my head. I mean, not ones
Switzerland. Do we have any from Switzerland?
Yes, there's definitely Switzerland. I mean, most of Europe, most of the European countries. I think almost all of the South American countries. A lot of Central America, some in Africa. So yeah, we're Asia. We got China. So anyways,
yeah, you guys send us a little note, a little email, and tell us where you're at because we would love to know. We really like to travel.
And what will really help us out too is if you leave us a favorable review, of course, only if you like our episodes.
Yes, we would totally love that. That would mean so much to us because you guys are so important.
Yeah. So the list, the audience is growing, but definitely we know that there's more married entrepreneurs that could use a little bit of encouragement, like you are. So please, the rank or the ratings really help us boost the rankings of the show, so more people can find us.
Yeah, because we really have a heart for you guys, and we want to help out as many people as we can.
Yeah. So today's episode is going to be about marriage is not a competition.
It's not?
Well, I used to think it was.
Oh, do tell.
No, well, whenever we have a disagreement, it always, at least, I don't know if it's a guy thing. Well, no, it's both women and men. We tend to have to, there always has to be a right or wrong or a win or lose. Right?
Right. Like there's a winner and then there's a loser.
Yeah, because you even hear it sometimes in another argument. It's like, oh, you always win. I always let you have it your way or whatever the case may be. Right? And so we always look at these things, these disagreements, as a competition. And of course, that's what makes these arguments become conflicts and unresolved conflicts because, and how over time, the marriage becomes fractured and there's less unity and intimacy and all that stuff that goes into it. Because when you treat marriage and especially arguments as a competition, that means there is a winner and there is a loser, which means the loser is not going to be feeling very good, right?
Well, and it's so sad that the person you're supposed to love the most, and we go around wounding them all the time and hurting them and putting them down.
Exactly.
Calling him a loser.
Well, hopefully you don't say that.
Well, no, but I mean, when one wins and one loses,
exactly.
In an argument.
So you can see how resentment builds up over time if, one argument after another that you're just beating each other up.
Well, and it erodes the romance, too.
Yeah, definitely is going to hurt the bedroom, for sure.
I mean, gee.
And so if you're wondering why, I remember, we'll just try to keep it as generic as possible, but a friend and no, it's not us, but I remember a friend, talking about their lack of intimacy, and the one spouse was always just beating up the other spouse,
Right.
and just always just knocking them down, and
Couldn't do anything right.
even in front of other people, just really criticizing them and all that, and and they were wondering. She's wondering why there's a lack of intimacy in their marriage, and I'm just like, "What? Well, of course not. Would you want to make love with someone that's always criticizing you in front of other people,
putting you down?" Exactly.
No. So.
And we always say romance starts outside the bedroom. You know what I mean? It's like what's going on during the week.
Yeah. So where does this come from? Right. This whole treating marriage like a competition, and I don't think we consciously think of it that way, but that's why we titled it this way, because I want you really to start thinking about it. Are you treating your marriage? Are you treating your disagreements like a competition? Do you always have to win?
So transactional.
Yeah, transactional. Where does this come from? I think that's where we got to start this whole discussion is, where does this come from? And I think, first of all, it just comes from our parents. We learn how to do marriage. We learn how to do conflict from where we grew up. Right? And unfortunately, or fortunately, it's our parents. And I'm sure, like our parents, there's a lot of great things they passed on to us, but there's also some things that probably aren't the best, like the way we did conflict or didn't do conflict.
Right.
I mean, both of us grew up in a household that didn't do conflict well.
We avoided it at all costs.
Or you just stormed out mad, right?
Right. We just walked out on each other. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not dealing with this.
Yeah. And so, and then, I've said this before, my dad was a pastor, and obviously that in Bible school or in seminary, they didn't teach you how to do conflict well.
Yeah, I don't think they teach that anymore.
No.
Unless maybe counseling or coaching or something. But.
No. And so, anyways, so we learn from our environment, and, that's where we pick it up from. So you can blame it on your parents. But that's not an excuse. I mean, it's a reason, but it's not an excuse. You shouldn't keep doing the same thing over and over again. So we want you to, hopefully from this episode moving forward, to look at your marriage a little bit differently and do conflict differently.
And raise your kids to do conflict differently, your family.
Yeah. And then even, where else do we learn this from? Well, just our upbringing outside of home. I mean, in school, in sports, in business, there's always a winner and a loser, a right or wrong, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what we're taught all the way.
There's only one way to do something. That's how I was taught.
Right, exactly. And so
it wasn't my way. It was somebody else's way.
Yes, I know, honey. And so our environment at home and even outside of home has really taught us right or wrong, win or lose.
Yeah, and I don't think we see a lot of good examples, at least I didn't growing up, of how to resolve conflict.
No, I mean, they're few and far between, or at least, you don't notice it sometimes when
you're a kid, yeah.
Yeah, and you're not, and even if there's other couples that did do conflict well, you don't really see that. You don't see behind the doors, right? So unless you grew up around a family that did do conflict well, and they some of that probably rubbed off on you.
Oh, I'm sure.
So where does this whole competition thing come from? Well, it just comes from, number one, our home, and even just the way we were brought up, just the way society raises us up is, right or wrong, win or lose.
Well, yeah, in society, it's all about me, and how am I going to get ahead, and what's best for me,
and so certainly, as an individual, a lot of those skills or those mindsets are helpful. But when it comes to marriage is a team sport. Now, I was raised, I played a lot of team sports, but we don't think about marriage as a team sport, but it is. So we're on the same team, but sometimes we treat each other like they're the opponent.
Right.
Right? This whole right or wrong, win, lose, that's like treating your spouse as the opponent as opposed to a team member. And how do you develop a strong team? Right? You're not always trying to beat down your team member. You're trying to you want your team member to do better.
Right. You guys want to succeed. Right.
The better they do.
And you need each other.
Right. The better they do, then the better you do as a team, right? You win more. You win more games. So you're wanting to raise them up. You're not trying to just constantly just beat down your teammate because they're not performing well, right? You might criticize them a little bit and all that, but at the end of the day, you want to build them up. Mm-hmm. You want them to become better, right? And so, treat marriage as a team sport, this team sport it is, that you want your spouse to do better.
Well, too, and if you win, we both win.
Right.
It's a win-win for both of us.
Mm-hmm. And just like a team, different skills working together makes the team better, right? Not the same. You don't put a team of people that have the same skill set.
Right, like basketball, they don't all have the same by any means.
Right. You can't have a bunch of 5'5" guys like me on your basketball team. Not going to win very many games. But you also need some 5'5" folks that are fast, can pass, can shoot. But you also need some of the bigger guys in there that can, get rebounds and get some easy shots inside, block some shots, those kind of things, right? And so you want to build a team with people with complementary skills, and that's where husband and wife comes in. We have complementary skills, but a lot of times our differences is what creates some of the arguments.
Right.
Is that right, honey?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think when you're dating, you're like, oh my gosh, this is wonderful, this is great. And then once you get married, all of a sudden, like, something turns, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's so annoying now. Like,
yeah, what happened?
I don't know, but it's like...
My jokes used to be so much funnier, honey, that we're dating.
Because the jokes are always about me.
They're not.
Are you laughing at me?
Never. So yeah, exactly. When we were dating, our differences was what attracted us to each other. And it was so endearing. It was cute. Made us laugh, right? Uh-huh. And all of a sudden, some years go on in our marriage, and now it becomes irritating. Would you cut it out? Stop it. I've heard that joke 1,000 times.
Our story.
Yeah. All of those things become just irritating.
Right.
It's no longer endearing. It just pisses you off. So we don't change. And you hear this a lot, right? As marriages go on, or the years go on, and they talk about each other like, oh, they've changed, or we've grown apart, or whatever the case may be. The reality is you haven't changed. You're the same person that you're dating, right? Mm-hmm. It's just our perspective has changed. That's the only difference. It's not your spouse hasn't changed. It's your perspective might change.
That's what the issue is, honey. Before, it's like, oh, you thought everything I did was wonderful, and now...
I still do, most of the time. Now it's just funnier.
See, I told you guys, he laughs at me all the time.
I'm laughing with you, honey.
Yeah.
And also just in business, because obviously this episode is for married entrepreneurs. Different skills, different thoughts in business make for better decision making. But a lot of times, it creates conflict. Oh, I just wish you would think of this more like I do, and those kind of things. Right?
Oh, yeah, we've had many of those conversations.
Yeah, a few.
When you're telling me, no, I don't like that idea at all. And then the weird thing is, like, maybe a month later, you'll come back and you'll say, like, honey, I like that idea. And I'm like, what idea? And then he tells me, and I, like, almost completely have forgotten because he's told me no, and he didn't like it. And then he's like, then what do you say?
I just say, yeah, I think it's a good idea.
He's thought about it, and I've completely gone on to something else.
Well, it takes me a while. I gotta think it through. And so, but...
Well, and then you got to come up with the strategy.
Well, that's the other thing. Yeah, I got to see how it's going to work. But all that to say is, it's so easy to say no to your spouse, or it's a bad idea or whatever, versus when you hire somebody, right, with a specific skill set that you feel is valuable, you're going to tend to listen more, probably because you're paying them, right? But when it's our spouse, even if your spouse is being paid, and they're not so close to you. Yeah, I think it's different when it comes from your spouse. But all that to say is, the differences that you bring together are different strengths, and you should listen to each other. You should look at things from different angles. It's beneficial to look at the same situation from multiple angles, right?
Right. Even when I don't want to.
Yeah, because then you'll make a better, more sound decision. Because if you only look at it from one perspective, you're only seeing one side of the coin. Mm-hmm. And so, just like when you assemble your team in business, you want to put together an executive team and employees and staff that have different skill sets. You definitely don't want to have people that are just like you.
Oh my gosh, no.
Right?
Not in business, definitely.
Right. Just in general, even
Right.
just as a husband and wife. You don't want to be thinking the same all the time, right? You don't want that homogenous thinking. Homogenous thinking, people that think alike, is really detrimental to any organization, first in business and also in marriage. Because that means you're only doing things the same way.
Right.
Right? And then then becomes lack of growth. Because there's more than one way to do things.
And we all have blind spots, right? So if we all see things the same way, you're not going to be able to point something out.
That means you all have the same blind spot.
Right.
And you're both going to run off the cliff like lemmings because there's nobody there to point out the blind spots or to look at things differently than you would be doing.
Right.
So how do we make this not a competition then? How do we make marriage not a competition? So I think the first thing is you just got to know that you're on the same team.
Yeah, I think ahead of time, like you were saying, have each other's interests and think, okay, and I know this can be really challenging, but think, okay, I want to talk about this, but I don't want to wound my spouse at the same time or cause more injury to them.
Yeah, so what you're talking about now is as you're bringing up a potential subject that could be a little touchy, right? Is you probably need to set up the discussion ahead of time so that one, like for me, I put my guard down, that I'm not automatically going to defense mode.
That I don't catch you off guard, yeah.
Right. Because, yes, we're on the same team, so, how you preface the conversation is important. And so, because I would think you want the best for the other person, because that means you're doing better as a team, as a couple, right?
And I think timing is is important too. When is a good time to talk about it?
Yeah. So we're on knowing that you're on the same team, really establishing that, right? I know it probably should go without saying, but you probably should talk to each other. Say, hey, we're on the same team. Right? Maybe even in the beginning of the discussion, say that, preface that up front. We're on the same team. I want the best for us. I want the best for you. So let's have a discussion, right? And so
or when is a good time to have this discussion?
Yeah. And so how you start to get on the same team is, if you haven't done it already, really establish a family vision, right? What does your best life look like? What are you working towards as husband and wife?
Yeah,
what are you working towards for the business? Set a vision and write it down. And that's something that you can always rally around whenever there's some disagreements in decision making, is look at your vision statement and look at your vision plan for each other and say, does this fit? Does this help us reach our goal? Does this help us reach our vision?
Yeah, that's good, because it's easy for me to get sidetracked.
Yeah,
and then you were like, roll out the vision and like, honey, do you think this is going down that path? And then sometimes I'll say yes, sometimes we'll say no. And then it's easier sometimes to make decisions because it's not so much what I want to do. Is this going down the path that we had decided we wanted to go down?
Yes, I mean, like, we're getting set to go on a 6-week book tour. Right?
Yeah, we're really excited. Some of you guys, we might be coming to see you.
Yeah, and so we're going to be driving around the country. And so we definitely need to know our vision, what our route is, where we're going to go, even the next destination, so that we don't get caught up in arguing about certain routes you take, or a road, or a turnoff, or whatever, right? Or
where we're going to stay,
or how much time we're going to spend in a certain spot, or whatever, because we've got a schedule to keep, and we got places to go, and people to visit, all that kind of stuff. And so knowing all those things up ahead of time will help kind of dissipate some of those disagreements, because sometimes we get caught up in the nitty gritty details without thinking about how this is going to impact the rest of our trip.
Right. Oh, that's definitely for sure. And then having it all written down so I can see and look at it. Okay, this is where we're going to be at tomorrow. This is when we're going to go see the Grand Tetons, and we're going to be there for 2 days and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. So vision is so important. That'll help you establish, really getting on the same team, so that no matter in business or in personal side of things, that you're always working towards the same things, the same common goals. Right.
And that's helped a lot, because we know we have 6 weeks. And so within that 6 weeks, there's only so many places that we can go in order to meet all those commitments that we've made.
Yeah. The other way to not make marriage a competition is, this is a tough one for especially guys, or especially those of you that grew up in sports or are very competitive, is laying down your ego and the need to be right or win. Right? Honey? You're laughing. Lay down your ego.
Lay it down.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, that is a tough one.
That's a tough one, because we are, again, we're wired for right or wrong, win or lose.
Well,
right?
Sometimes I just want to win just to win. It doesn't matter if I'm right or wrong. Yes, I just admitted that.
Yep. Yep. So, this is decades of wiring, of, needing to win or lose, or needing not to, you don't want, no one wants to lose, but needing to win, the field to be right.
Yeah.
Right?
One up, right, be heard.
And so if we felt we've lost, or we felt we've been wrong, then it really hurts our ego.
Yeah.
And so, but in marriage, it's not an ego issue, right?
Well, I think too, sometimes I probably won arguments, and then I look back and I think, oh my gosh, was it really worth it? And did it really matter?
Yeah, especially for, most arguments are pretty stupid.
I mean, if I really hurt you and wounded you, was it really worth it at all costs to win?
Right. And so, yeah, this is a tough one, but definitely this is something you've got to work through to just really, it's not about winning or losing. I mean, I remember the first time, I just empathize with you, right? So typically when you bring up an issue and for some reason automatically I feel like, oh, you think I did something wrong. Again, here's the right or wrong thing, right? I did something wrong. You're telling me your feelings, and so which means I must have done something bad. And then the automatic response for me would be to justify my actions or my words, right? Because I want to prove myself right.
Or get defensive.
And be defensive, right? So I go into the win or lose scenario. I go into the competitive mode, and I remember the first time I just empathized with your feelings, of sharing with you, I understood how what I did made you feel the way you felt. And your reaction was just, thank you, honey. And I think we kissed and hugged or whatever. And I remember, and that was it. That was the end of the discussion.
I think you were so disappointed.
I kind of was. I was ready for an argument. Yeah.
You wanted more than that.
Yeah, well.
You're like, that's it?
Exactly. So I remember I was like, really? That was it? That was pretty simple. I mean, that took, barely 2 minutes.
So do you want to get in a fight about that? Are you really sure that's all you want?
Let's rehash that.
You don't need anything else?
Let's rehash that, okay?
I'm sure you do.
I need to win that argument. So that was one of my first realizations, that it's not about right or wrong or win or lose, because it had nothing to do with that.
Right.
Right? It was really me sharing with you that understood how you felt, and that my actions or words made you feel that way, was not an admission of wrong, right?
Right. I think I just wanted to be heard.
Right.
And felt
it was
like
just
you heard
acknowledging your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. So there's no, I didn't have to, it's not like it's not like you wanted me to say that I was wrong or I did something bad to you or whatever, right? The things that were going through my head that we normally want to start arguing about or defending myself about. And so it had nothing to do with right or wrong. It was just once I laid down my ego and just really empathize with you, and everything was good.
Right.
That was it. And most arguments are like this between husbands and wives, right? Because we're arguing a lot is because one just wants to be heard and the other one wants to fix something.
Right.
And that's where the competition comes in, and that's when the arguments and the conflict arises, right? We're not on the same page.
There's a misfire.
Yeah, we're not on the same page of what the other person wants or needs.
Yeah, I remember one time we were having a heated discussion, and you asked me, honey, what do you need? And I said, a hug. And that really got you off your game. He's like, what? I'm like, just a hug.
Yeah, I thought she was messing with me.
You didn't know what to think, you guys.
because, I was waiting for an argument.
He's all geared up, ready to go.
I was, man. I had my best arguments, in the back of my mind, ready to go. Anyways, but yeah, that's we said this before in past episodes, but that's, when you find yourselves in an argument that's just not going anywhere, we call that the cycle of insanity. Just saying the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, but you're just in a cycle of insanity. That just ask the other person, ask your spouse, what do you need from me? Because there's only two things they need from you. Either they need you to help fix something, or they need you just to listen and empathize, right? And especially when it comes to your wife probably just wants you to listen, because we don't do that as well. So lay down your ego, and you need to be right. And the last one, how to not make it a competition, is, well, I guess this is the outcome, that your spouse will love you more when you're not always trying to beat her or him.
Oh yeah.
Right? This goes to the intimacy issue. So if you're feeling, as you're listening, and if you're questioning, hey, we're not as intimate anymore, we're not as close anymore, a lot of this is the way you've been treating conflict. Right? We've been beating each other up.
Because I think for women, it's like I was saying earlier, the romance is like all week long. It's not like just a button we can switch and, we're having conflict, and 1 second later we can go into the romance department. But having these things already resolved helps a lot.
Yeah.
And cultivating that connection and being close to each other.
Yeah, exactly. So these are some steps of how to make this not a competition. I think as you start to really talk to each other about your vision for the future, really reinforcing the fact that you're on the same team, you want the best for each other, you want the best for the other person. Yeah,
you say that, and then you also show it to them. Yeah. How can I help you to achieve the best? If there's something you're wanting to do, something you're passionate about, help your spouse with that.
Yeah, exactly. Come up. That's part of the vision and the game plan, is how do you, because there's certain things, we all have our common vision, but there's also things we want to accomplish separately as an individual, right? Like, get my golf game in better shape, so, that kind of thing. So we definitely want each other to have their own thing, as well as obviously our collective, the collective things that we want to achieve together.
Right.
Right. And so, but yeah, the vision is so important. And yeah, just lay down your need to be right all the time, and just really support each other, empathize with each other, and you'll see the intimacy come back. Mm-hmm. Right?
Because so many times I see this happen to us more and more, is it looks like we could possibly get into a heated discussion, but a lot of times we're saying the same things in two different ways. And then I think, like, in my mind, I'll be like, he's not listening to me. Or, I'm not being heard. I don't know what goes through your mind. And so we're both trying to get our needs met, and almost in an argument, but it's the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of what we're saying to each other is the same thing, just in different ways.
Yeah. I'm like, you're not listening to me. And then he's like, yeah, I am. I think we're saying the same thing.
Exactly. Exactly. So hope this helps. What do you think, honey?
Yeah, hope this helps you guys.
So please share this, because obviously there's a lot of, you're not alone. We're not alone in this.
Right. And I just want to say, we're so much more powerful, you guys, when we're on the same team and working together.
Yeah.
We can do so much more together.
Yeah, you can accomplish a lot more faster.
Right.
And better. So please share this. Leave a favorable rating. 5 stars is preferable, right?
Yes, please.
Especially if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I don't think all the podcast players allow you to rate. But anyways, I know those two definitely do. So anyways, so hope this helps. Marriage is not a competition. Lay down your need to be right, and watch your intimacy come back and strengthen between you and your spouse. So until next week, God bless. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to the Power Up Your Marriage and Business podcast. If you found this episode to be valuable, please leave a rating and share it with an entrepreneur couple you know.
Yes, and to remember to hit the subscribe button so that you'll get all of our latest episodes, and visit our website, Power Couples by Design, to access a variety of free resources to help your marriage and business, like our weekly videos and on-demand webinars. And don't forget to download our free 8-step guide that you can find on our homepage to help your marriage and business thrive.
We're here to help you build a thriving marriage and a prosperous business. God bless your marriage and business. See you next week.